The orbital bombardment had been scheduled for 0600 hours. Empress Xylaria Vorn stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Crimson Dominion, watching Earth spin below like a fragile blue marble. Her violet eyes, cold as the void of space, surveyed the planet with the detachment of someone who had watched 1,000 worlds burn. Majesty? Her general's voice crackled through the comm. All strike groups are in position. We await your command. Xylaria's hand hovered over the activation crystal. This was routine now. Humanity had refused the terms of surrender. They would be made examples of. Their cities reduced to glass, their civilization erased from the galactic record. It was the fate of all who defied the Vorn Empire. But her daughter, Lyra, had been acting strangely since they'd captured the Earth's defense coordinator 3 days ago. The child, barely 7 cycles old, had been unusually quiet, spending hours in the detention level. Xylaria had allowed it, assuming the girl was simply observing the enemy as part of her education and conquest. Hold position, Xylaria commanded, her hand falling away from the crystal. I will inspect the detention level first. The general's confusion was palpable even through the comm, but he dared not question his empress. The detention level was a stark contrast to the opulent corridors of the flagship's command deck. Bare metal walls, harsh lighting, the smell of recycled air and fear. Xylaria's boots echoed against the floor as she approached the holding cells, her royal guard flanking her like shadows. She heard it before she saw it, Lyra's laughter. Not the practiced courtly laughter she'd been taught, but genuine childlike joy. The sound stopped Xylaria in her tracks. Through the transparent barrier of Cell 7, she witnessed something that defied every calculation, every strategic projection. Her daughter sat cross-legged on the cold floor, her back to a human woman in a gray maintenance uniform. The woman's hands moved with gentle precision through Lyra's silver hair, weaving it into an intricate braid. And then, the human woman was saying, her voice warm and animated, the princess found out that the dragon wasn't mean at all. He was just lonely and needed a friend. Like me, Lyra said softly. Xylaria's hand moved to her sidearm. This was clearly some kind of manipulation, a psychological tactic by the humans. She would execute this prisoner herself for daring to. Your hair is so beautiful, the woman continued, tying off the braid with a piece of torn fabric from her own sleeve. There, all done, sweetheart. Want to see? The woman produced a small scratched mirror, contraband that should have been confiscated, and held it up. Lyra's face lit up with wonder. It's perfect. Tessa, you're so good at this. Mother never has time to... Lyra stopped, her expression falling. Mother says braids are for the weak. That a warrior's hair should be bound for efficiency, not beauty. Tessa Reed, Xylaria now recognized her from the prisoner manifest as a janitor from the Earth Defense Force headquarters, utterly insignificant, smiled sadly and sat beside the young empress in training. Your mom sounds very strong, Tessa said carefully. I bet she has to make a lot of hard choices. She destroys planets, Lyra said matter-of-factly. She says it's necessary. That mercy is weakness. Xylaria's finger tightened on her weapon. She should burst in, end this contamination of her daughter's mind, but something held her frozen. You know what I think? Tessa said, brushing a stray strand of silver hair from Lyra's face. I think the strongest people are the ones who choose kindness even when they could choose cruelty. My daughter used to say I was strong because I kept smiling even after her dad died. Even when things were hard. You have a daughter? Lyra's eyes widened. Where is she? Tessa's hand stilled. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with barely contained emotion. She was in New Geneva. When your ships came, I haven't been able to reach her since. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Xylaria expected her daughter to laugh, to display the callous superiority she'd been trained to embody. Instead, Lyra did something that shattered her mother's world. The child threw her arms around Tessa Reed and began to cry. I'm sorry, Lyra sobbed into the janitor's uniform. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Mother never tells me about the people, just the numbers, the worlds, the victories. Tessa held the girl who represented everything she should hate, the symbol of her oppressors, the daughter of the tyrant who might have killed her own child. And yet her arms wrapped around Lyra with the same instinctive protection any mother would offer. It's not your fault, honey, Tessa whispered, rocking her gently. You're just a kid. None of this is your fault. Xylaria's weapon clattered to the floor. The sound brought both figures' attention to the doorway. Lyra's face went pale with terror. Tessa moved instinctively, positioning herself between the child and the Empress. "Majesty," Tessa said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Please, she's just a little girl. Whatever punishment you have for me, she doesn't deserve." Silence. Xylaria's voice was ice, but her hand shook as she retrieved her weapon. She looked at her daughter, really looked at her, for the first time in cycles. Saw not the heir to an empire, but a lonely child who had found comfort in enemy arms. The comm crackled. "Majesty, we are approaching the strike window. Orders?" Xylaria stared at Tessa Reed. This insignificant human who had done something Xylaria had never managed, made her daughter feel safe enough to cry. This janitor who had every reason to hate, choosing instead to braid hair and tell stories about lonely dragons? "General," Xylaria said slowly. "Stand down all strike groups, Majesty." "I don't understand." "I said stand down." The force of her command echoed through the detention level. Lyra flinched. Tessa didn't move. Xylaria deactivated the cell barrier and stepped inside, her imposing figure casting a shadow over the two seated on the floor. Tessa raised her chin, defiant even in the face of certain death. "You have a daughter," Xylaria said. It wasn't a question. "Yes?" "In New Geneva?" "Yes." Tessa's voice broke. "Her name is Maria. She's 12. She likes soccer and terrible pop music and wants to be a veterinarian." Xylaria activated her command interface, pulling up the strike records from New Geneva. Her fingers moved across the holographic display with practiced efficiency. Casualty estimates, infrastructure damage, civilian displacement zones. She cross-referenced names, locations, emergency shelter registrations. "Shelter Complex 7, Xylaria said. "Sub-level 3, that's where she is." Tessa's breath caught. "She's alive?" "Very." Xylaria deactivated the display and looked at her daughter, still clinging to this human woman who had shown her more maternal affection in 3 days than Xylaria had in 7 years. "General, prepare my shuttle, and locate this human's child. Bring her here, unharmed, Mother." Lyra's voice was small, confused. Xylaria knelt, bringing herself to eye level with her daughter for the first time she could remember. Gently she touched the braid Tessa had woven. "It's beautiful," she said quietly. "I had forgotten that beauty could exist without conquest." She stood addressing Tessa directly. "The invasion is over. We will withdraw from Earth's orbit, but I require something from you." "Anything," Tessa said immediately. "Teach me." Xylaria's voice was barely a whisper. "Teach me how to be what she needs. I have conquered 1,000 worlds, but I don't know how to braid my daughter's hair." Tessa Reed, janitor from Earth, looked into the eyes of the galaxy's most feared conqueror and saw only a mother who had finally realized what she'd lost. "Okay," she said simply, "I can do that." Outside, Earth continued to spin, unaware that its survival had been secured not by weapons or strategy, but by a simple act of kindness in a cold detention cell. The Crimson Dominion's engines powered down, and across the fleet, confused but obedient soldiers stood down from their positions. In Cell 7, 3 mothers, 2 present, 1 hoped for, sat together on the floor while Empress Xylaria Vorn learned that sometimes the strongest thing a warrior can do is choose to be gentle. The galaxy would never be the same.